So 2023 is going to be a big year for Star Wars fans. Many of the major projects coming out are things fans have been anticipating for years. And with there being so much content, I thought I would break down the specific releases that I think you should be paying attention to. Some of these projects you will have already heard of, but I also am including some of the smaller scale things that are rarely seen or talked about. We'll be starting with stories coming out in January that you can get into right now and continue to go on throughout the year. So let's jump right into the list. The Bad Batch. It's a show that has already started by the time of recording, and is a show that I will be keeping up with week to week. People who have watched animation for Star Wars know that the content that they come out with and the shows they come out with are generally some of the best Star Wars stories that you can get into. That being said, in regards to animation, I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of Season 1 of The Bad Batch, and I feel like it didn't live up to the other series such as The Clone Wars and Rebels. The time period that the show takes place in is definitely interesting, but The Bad Batch isn't really the most interesting characters, but more represent these different archetypes. I also personally want animation to be telling bigger and bolder stories, since the medium is kind of in a renaissance now with things such as Spider-Verse pushing CGI to be more expressive. But in regards to that, I am more hopeful for this new season, as reviewers saw the first 14 episodes and describe it as there being a better balance between the stories, big moments for Clone fans, and a huge improvement from Season 1. Comics. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a big endorser of comics, and I think Star Wars comics in particular are never appreciated as much as they should be. Comics are one of the best mediums to get a bite-sized story, striking a balance between the visual and written components. For 2023, there are two comics that I want to highlight. The first of which is called The Blade by Charles Soule, and it is a 4-issue miniseries following the legendary Jedi Master Porter Engle and his sister Barash as they go on a journey that will test them in ways never before. The fans who know Charles Soule all generally agree that he is one of the greatest writers currently working not just on Star Wars but through all of his projects. In the same vein as Filoni and his animated projects, Soule's influence within publishing cannot be understated. Previous projects he has worked on include the Lando, Poe Dameron, and Darth Vader series, which were all extremely well received by the larger fanbase. Right now he is writing the main Star Wars comic, which shows the journey of the original trilogy cast between Episode 5 and 6. He also serves as one of the head writers on The High Republic, which is an ongoing multimedia project all taking place hundreds of years before the films, which is where The Blade also takes place. As of the time of this recording, the first issue has already released, and I can confidently say that this series will be one that you definitely want to check out. You don't need to know anything beforehand. I actually think you will have a more enjoyable experience reading the series and not knowing anything about the characters. One of the cool things about The High Republic is that you are constantly seeing these new concepts and ideas, and The Blade introduces some interesting ideas that I can't wait to talk about. The other series that I want to discuss is Star Wars Yoda, which will span 10 issues written by various authors. The series is split into 3 arcs, with the first arc having already started and finishing up in January. Despite being such an impactful character, Yoda rarely gets the spotlight. There was a short stint in the Star Wars run where Yoda went on a journey, but those who have read it have generally agreed to forget it exists. However, I do think this new series will be different. Each writer is focusing on a different aspect of Yoda, whether it be his personality, friendships, or challenges. The writer of the first arc is Cavan Scott, who often breaks the hearts of readers by pushing characters to the absolute brink of their capabilities. Scott has chosen to show Yoda detached from the Order, as he takes time away to live with the group regularly being attacked by raiders. Not only do we get to see his individual impact on an entire community, but we also get to see how his absence impacts the Jedi Order and those close to him. The second arc will focus on Yoda's relationship with Dooku after he had become a Jedi Master. It's easy to forget that Dooku was once Yoda's Padawan, so any opportunity we get to see their interactions prior to him leaving the Order is super interesting to me. Mandalorian Season 3. If you talk to anyone about Star Wars nowadays, it's most likely going to be about The Mandalorian, and that's for good reason. It's consistently entertaining, has a great cast of characters, and has a lot of heart beneath the spectacle. It's a show that repeatedly proves it's worth the wait, and Season 3 is going to be no different. We got a small glimpse of what the duo were up to in the Book of Boba Fett, and while the 2 episodes did derail the trajectory of the show for a moment, those episodes were by far some of the most exhilarating Star Wars content we got last year. I've been keeping up with this show since day one, and seeing Din's journey has been unforgettable. I'm excited to see Din take on a greater amount of leadership within the remnants of Mandalorian culture, as well as see how he fits into the wider story of the Mandoverse, as it has been called. Visions. The first season of Visions came out in 2021, and it's a project that flew under the radar at the time. Now, I still think that the show continues to be underrated by the wider fan base. The reason why I like the first season of Visions so much is because it showcases how a different culture views Star Wars and the takeaways that they get from Star Wars. And in Visions' case, this happens to be Japan. Not only do we get to see a wide variety in the stories told, but it's also viewed through an anime lens, which showcases Star Wars in a medium that has never really been explored before. Obviously, the episodes with the cool lightsaber fights and broad story get all the attention, but I also appreciate that the series took some time to tell some more intimate tales at a smaller scale. Most people don't know, but the second season is actually coming out within the next few months. It will be branching off from just Japan, and it will incorporate animation studios across the world. If you haven't seen the first season of Visions yet, I highly encourage watching it. It's a collection of 9 shorts. Some you will like more than others, but if you're like me, you will just enjoy seeing the variety in animation, storytelling, and length. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. This game is by far one of my most anticipated releases this year. The first game, Fallen Order, was the perfect example of how to create a dramatic, enticing Star Wars game that is satisfying from beginning to end. I started the game the day it came out, and the experience of playing it alongside the release of The Mandalorian was unforgettable. And now, almost as if they timed it, a new game following Cal Kestis is once again releasing with episodes of The Mandalorian. From what clues we have about the story so far, they seem to be going in an interesting direction. Cameron Monaghan, who plays Cal Kestis, previously described some of the strained relationships the characters have going into this next game, stating, "Cere and Cal have this interesting dynamic where she's not his formal master, but she is his mentor. And frankly, they have different ideas of how to deal with imperialism and the Empire. In the first game, it was about finding family and what it means to create a family. With this story, a lot of it has to do with what happens when there's stress on a family. What we end up finding in the story is a really complicated and exciting development to how we want to approach the character, and I think it is not only exciting, but it's also emotional and beautiful and treats its audience with a level of respect that I think a lot of people are going to really appreciate. The villain also seems to be going in a direction different than the tired old Inquisitor route. A mysterious figure who seems to be from the past and wearing Jedi robes, we are only left to speculate what their motivations are and how they come into conflict with Cal. Remember how I said Survivor was one of my most anticipated projects this year? Well, Ahsoka is definitely my number one pick going into 2023. Us Rebels fans have been waiting years for an announcement for a sequel series, and while it isn't animated, I think the Ahsoka show will do well in its place. Getting to see all our favorite members of the Ghost crew in live action will never fail to give me chills, and I'm interested to see how Filoni has evolved as a writer and director. A small teaser was shown at Celebration last May, and I can say that any doubts I had beforehand are now gone. I can't wait to see how this one turns out. All the projects mentioned in this video are just my personal picks for stories I think you should look out for this year, and is by no means comprehensive. There are tons of other content coming out this year, and I would encourage you to explore on your own to see if there's anything you might be interested in. Please let me know down below what you're looking forward to most, and thank you for watching.